Hello everyone, Trusivraj here, and today we are going to talk about how to build our girl March 7th. Now, first off, I have to say she has been so much better as a free-to-play unit as I thought she would be. I mean, most times when you get a free character, they're decent, they're great, but they're nothing compared to most of the other characters that you might be able to throw into your roster. And with preservation already being kind of limited, I think we only have Fire MC, we've got her herself, and we have Gepard. As far as I know, I think there might be one more, but yeah, that's a pretty limited roster. So that said, she's always going to be valuable just because of that, at least for now. But if you really, really want to invest into her, then you're going to enjoy this a lot. So first off, we'll get started with stats and everything. You're definitely going to want to get defense percent in almost really everything. So for the chest piece, I would actually highly recommend that you get effect hit rate, because effect hit rate is going to give her more chances to freeze whenever she's hitting enemies with her ultimate. And at the beginning, her freeze is maybe like, a 50% chance? Let's go to her traces. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go to her skills. If we go to her skills and we look at her ultimate, 50% base chance. That's already hot trash. You're lucky you see people get frozen even now. But it's the fact that she hits multiple enemies. So even at a 50% base chance, unless you're fighting a boss, you're probably going to still see one or two enemies get frozen here and there, which is nice. And then on top of that, if you get a 5-star relic, which sadly I don't even have myself yet, and you get that effect hit rate, that's like 43%, I want to say, when you get it to level 15 with the 5-star. So that's 43% on top of her base 50. You're looking at almost 100% effect hit rate for an AoE freeze. That's huge, especially at Ascension level 6. When you get her to Ascension level 6, and I'll take you to that right now. What am I doing? Traces. When you get her to Ascension level 6, you're going to get 15% increased chance. That's going to put her at 65%. So that 65% on top of the 43% that you're getting from her relic is putting you above 100%. 100% is really good. It's not the best. You still want to get more than that, but it's a great place to start. And so all I can say is you definitely want effect hit rate starting out, without a doubt. If you can't get it, then obviously, as you see here, defense percent is just fine. It's absolutely fine. It's going to just bulk up her shield that much more. I literally have it, I think, on pretty much all of my pieces. Yeah, literally defense percent on all of my pieces. And I'm telling you, her shields are fat. Literally, you see that white bar that surrounds your character's hit bar? It covers almost that entire bar right now. And she's currently got about 2,000. Yeah, she has 2,400 defense. Mine does. Mine has 2,400 defense. 2,400 defense. And she's already, she's basically just eating damage. She laughs at all the damage that people deal to her and her allies. So on top of that, the early game. The early game, you don't really need to worry about, let's say, set effects and stuff. How you have all these set effects, defense percent 15, increase the max damage of the shield. All that stuff is nice, and if you can get it, hey, power to you, without a doubt. Go for it. But in the early game, you don't really need set effects. Half the crap that I've seen people clearing, they've had blue pieces. I'm sitting here with freaking purples and golds, 4 and 5 stars. I've seen people with blue pieces clearing similar content. So you don't need to gung-ho your character like I have right now. In fact, most people are saying it's absolutely best to just save a lot of that stuff for closer to the end game, when you can almost guarantee you're getting nothing but 5 and 4 stars. But I mean, if you really want to wait that long, go for it. I don't think you're really ruining your account if you know what you're doing. A 4-star piece can go for a lifetime. In Genshin, same deal. When you got 4-star artifacts in Genshin, half the time you could keep that thing for years to come before you finally land yourself on a perfect 5-star. And you were clearing all the content just fine. So a 5-star to me is more of like a bonus. Hey, you get all the great stuff and you're getting more stats on top of it. Awesome. So don't worry too much about that in the early game. But you definitely want to focus on defense percent as your main stat for everything but your chest piece, unless that's your only option. As you can see here, effect hit rate is kind of hard to come by. So when you finally get it, odds are you'll probably have garbage stats on top. But it's still going to be worth it because all the other things, just the main stats alone, are going to give you the base stat you need for her defense percent to give you fat shields. And then the effect hit rate is going to give you everything you need to pop the freezes. All the substats are not as important, especially right now in the early game. But if you are wanting to chase those, then I would highly recommend that you go for defense percent as your main substat if you don't have it already as a main stat, because you can't get both. You either have a main stat and then the substat doesn't exist, or you have a substat with a different main stat. Like, let's say if this was effect hit percent, then I could get defense percent as a substat. And then as a second, I would say, what I'm trying to say is you want to do defense percent first. You want to do effect hit rate second as your substat. Those are like the two really big ones. You want to get as much of those as possible. And I would honestly recommend effect resistance as your third main substat, because the less you get CC'd yourself, the more often you can CC the enemy and protect your teammates, right? Exactly. So now that we got all that out the way, let's go into the other kind of, suboptimal stats. Speed. Speed is nice. Speed is amazing. If you want to put it on your boots, go right on ahead. I can't justify it on her. I feel like you're losing a lot of shield power from that. Again, early game, you can probably get by with it just fine. But later in the game, I feel like she's absolutely going to have a lot of value with that stat being defense percent. And I mean, get into in the substat, you can probably throw it into the substat and be just fine. In fact, as your fourth stat, that would probably be the second best, if not the best of your fourth stats, because you do want to be able to go first to be able to get your shields off before the enemy attacks you and damages your enemies, right? Or damages your allies. So yeah, I'd say speed would probably be the fourth best when it comes to substats. But then there's also break effect. Now, break effect, it's pretty much just saying how much damage are you going to do after you break the enemy. And I think there's like, I don't know, I haven't really looked into this, but I think there's kind of a flat amount of damage you do after breaking an enemy. And then this just adds on to that, which means even if she has very poor damage, with break effect, she's still going to do a lot of damage after breaking an enemy. So if that's something you're wanting to go for, by all means, that's an option too. But I would say if you're going down more the pay to win route, then you could even probably toss the speed in favor of crit rate and crit damage. And I only say that, which honestly, I'll explain it later in more detail, but her E4 allows her to do this solely when she's follow-up attacking. But we'll get to that later. So aside from that, there's also HP percent. Now you would think, hey, HP percent should be kind of higher on this list, like why wouldn't she have more HP when she's already building so much defense? Well, that's because HP, she's like a tank Leona. If you've ever played League of Legends, Leona likes HP, but nowhere near as much as she likes her defense and her magic defense. You're going to be stacking way more defense and magic defense than you're ever going to think about stacking HP. HP is kind of just a bonus, and that's how I see it here with March 7th. HP is just kind of a bonus. You don't really care for it, but if you get it out of anything else, hey, why not? And then you got your flat stats. Flat stats are trash. They're just there to make you upset. You do not want them. If you see them, if you got a near perfect set and you got one flat stat, you're going to cry, but it's still a pretty good set. You're not just going to trash it. But if you've got two flat stats, especially before you've even started to level up that item, I'm going to tell you right now, unless you're just desperate for that main stat, just trash it and try again. Now, on top of that, with our relics here, we also have these, what are they called? I guess it's the planar sphere and the link rope. So these two pieces have their own set effect. And as you see here with mine, she gets a 15% defense increase just for having both pieces. And then if I have 50% effect rate, I get another 15% defense. So if we factor that into the defense that we're losing by changing this from defense percent to effect hit rate, typically you'd be losing like, say, 39%, right? That kind of sucks. but you still have plenty of fat stacks with all your other defense percent, right? So you're not really losing 39%. And it's going to be very, very, very great that it's offset by someone like, say, Bronya. Bronya at Ascension 4 gets a 20% defense buff for her allies for 2 turns. That's huge. So you would really only be losing 19% of your defense in your main chess piece if you were running effect hit rate here instead with a Bronya that's level 60 and you've invested in her Ascension level 4. Really great, really great. And hey, if RNGesus loves you and you've got effect hit rate stacked up from the enhances from all your pieces and you manage to get 50% through your set, then hey, you could choose to get rid of that effect hit rate here and put defense percent back. But you have to be mindful. 100% isn't where you should be sitting. You want to be around 150 to 200%, because that almost guarantees that you're going to be freezing each and every time. Because when bosses and enemies have their own effect hit rate or effect resistance, you're oftentimes going to be below that 100% threshold. So stacking 150 plus is going to be the optimal goal here. And again, you're really not going to miss this defense percent in this chess piece. I can almost guarantee it. You take this piece off, you're probably not even going to notice the difference in your barriers. You get her to 150, 200%. Not only do you have fat shields, you're also sitting there and you're completely freezing an entire enemy team's worth of characters. Anywhere from what? I want to say 1 to 5 enemies. Freezing them all at the same time, which is oftentimes putting your allies above them to be able to go next. And then proceeding to kill them, if not CCing them further, to keep your allies from being hit, which is basically protection in its own right, correct? So she's a disruptor and a protector in one character, and she's free, guys. She's a free character capable of doing this. You just got to put a little investment in her, and you're really going to see her shine. Now to her light cone. Oh, man. And this is a big controversial one. I think a lot of people really, really take this light cone for granted. Now, this is what you get from the simulated universe. It's one of those, one of the free ones. And I've got mine already almost to level 5. Now, most people are saying, oh, this cone is garbage, you know, and that's only typically because it's a defensive cone. People don't understand, in a game like this, it's not all about the damage. If you can't survive the boss fight, no matter how much damage you're doing, you're gonna lose. If you got characters like March 7th, who not only survived the fight herself, but through the combination of her relics and light cones can allow her teammates to thrive in battle also, you're gonna be way more well off than someone, let's say, putting 2 eruditions and 2 eruditions, 1 destruction, and say like what's a hunt. Like, you put a team like that together, you're gonna do some mad damage at the beginning. You're probably gonna be able to chisel that whole full health bar at the beginning, more or less. You might be able to completely shred the first boss health bar. And then when phase 2 comes, you're crying because you got nothing going for you. All of your team is squishy, and she's just like, let's say Cacolia, she's just freezing you, she's stunning you, she's constantly AoE damaging you, and all you can do is sit there as she just constantly gets all these free turns, along with her daughter Bronya when she pops up and starts giving her even more free turns and more damage on top of her abilities. So yeah. Anyways, to the light cone, it gives her free effect res in the light cone, which is huge. Again, the less she gets CC'd, the more she's able to CC and protect your allies. She also gets a shield when she's attacked and has no shield of her own based on her max HP. Now, even without trying to invest in HP, I'm sitting at 2200. If I had a lot, if I wanted to actually chase HP for that passive, specifically for that light cone passive, and got HP here, let's say 5%. Well, let's say it starts at 2.7-ish or so. So let's say 2% here and then all the way down. So you get like an extra 10% HP. That's not a lot. You're not really going to see a big difference there. And by the time she's in the late game, she's going to be sitting around 3,000, 3,500 HP, if not more, if someone really wants to invest in her HP to also synergize with this light cone. So at level 5, I want to say it's like 32%. So yeah. Current. So on the next level, it'll shield her for 32% and it'll reduce her damage by 24%. Currently it's 28, and I'm reducing by 21. So that's huge because, again, if I already have a shield on me, it's still benefiting me. It's not just, oh, hey, you have no shield, let me put on a shield, and now it's basically useless aside from the res. No, it's I have a shield, and now, because I have a shield, I'm also having my damage reduced, which is insane. So she's just becoming that much more tanky because of the light cone itself, giving her more innate tankiness. And that synergizes so well with her E2. And that's because if we go to her E2, which again, this is more the pay to win side. If you can't really, expect to invest in her, then this obviously isn't as important. But for those of you going on the pay to win route, like I am when it comes to getting her Eidolons, I probably said that wrong, sorry. Then yes, her E2, upon entering battle, grants a shield equal to 24% of her defense, plus 320 to an ally with the lowest HP percentage, and it lasts 3 turns. Now that's huge because when you go to the traces and you get this trace here at, I want to say Ascension 4 or Ascension 3. It's one of the two. I forget. I'm sorry. But you get this. You've now allowed her base skill to shield for 3 turns. Then you synergize that with her E2, where at the beginning of the battle, your squishiest target or your weakest target with the lowest HP at the time, if you didn't go back and, top them off and you got someone at like 30 health, well, this shield is going to put a shield on them immediately. You don't need to waste a whole turn shielding them. They now have a free shield. That's insane. And then she can proceed to shield someone else. And if an enemy has a lot of AoE or something like that, or they choose to just straight out attack March herself, her light cone is going to do the rest of the work. So you've shielded 3 people essentially in 1 turn with a single target shielder. Let that sink in. She is a single target shielder. But the moment you've invested in this light cone, she becomes a 2 target shielder. Then you invest in her Eidolon at level 2, she becomes a 3 target shielder. Let that sink in. And then you put, let's say, look at my team, okay? Look at my team. I have Bronya. Ignore the Eidolons. Those aren't really important right now. But my Bronya, or anyone's Bronya, has a skill here. When she affects you with this skill, once she buffs you, she also lets you immediately take an action again. So within the first turn, with Bronya on your team or someone similar to Bronya, you can literally shield 3 of your allies right from the gate, and then potentially get yourself shielded if the ally hits you. And you've got a team full of shields right at the gate. And then you combine that with her E6. Her E6 is huge. It heals her for essentially it heals your allies at 3,000 HP. I based it on 3,000 HP. Your allies are going to heal for 226 HP per turn. And then that's basically 3 turns, because that barrier, I can almost guarantee you, likely isn't going to break, except maybe in a boss fight. So you've got 3 turns of healing. That's 600-ish something healing. I did the math and I forgot already. But essentially, you're healing for a quarter of your health within those 3 turns. So if you're at basically almost 0 health, she pops that clutch shield off right at the last minute, and you get 3 turns to just let it sit on that character. That character's going to have a fourth of their HP back. And then odds are, in reality, you can keep refreshing that shield, and that character's just going to basically keep healing and take no damage at the same time. So she becomes almost a pseudo abundance character at that point when you E6 her. And this is, again, now this isn't free. This is more pay to win. She is a free character, but at this point she becomes pay to win. Let's be honest. But essentially, a free character that you get at the start has the potential, if you're just crazy lucky with RNGesus as a free to play account, you could have a character who not only protects you as a preservation character, but she can proceed to also heal you without you needing a healer in your own right. How insane is that? So again, all that synergizes where you're not only shielding the lowest priority target, which is her herself, because she's going to be plenty tanky, but you're also shielding the highest priority target at the beginning. She's just amazing. I don't see how they could have made a free character like her this amazing. It just blows my mind. Truly blows my mind. Now, I did skip E4, and E4 is amazing too. This is where pay to win comes into play also. And it's more for those of you who want if you want your March to like be a pseudo DPS while still being an amazing shielder, that's where E4 comes into play. Because 30% of her defense when she's counterattacking, not when you freely attack. So you literally don't change your playstyle. This is just what happens now. Anytime she counterattacks from a shielded target to the enemy, 30% of her defense is added to that. So if we're basing her on a 3,000 defense ratio here, so 900 damage. So she's dealing an extra 900 damage at 3,000 defense every time she counterattacks. 900 damage before anything else gets applied. We're not factoring crit rate, or we're not factoring crit damage yet. We're not factoring anyone buffing her damage like Bronya. None of that. That's huge. She's doing basically solid support damage. Because right now she kind of tickles. Like if you get her to attack right now, she does what, maybe 300-400 damage, maybe that lucky 5 or 6. With this, she's actually going to be doing some respectable damage whenever she auto attacks, and she gets to do it 3 times because what is it? It's also a part of her E4. She gets an extra counter effect whenever she gets to E4. So you get 3 auto attacks, which is basically covering 3 of your teammates aside from yourself, where you are dealing over 1,000 damage before you even factor in crit rate and damage. So if you want to go the damage route, once you get her to E4, you can absolutely do so. If you want to sacrifice like half her tankiness, half of her ability to protect your team, and just make her another DPS that still applies some kind of defensive capability, you're going to be able to do that. And I think that's a beautiful thing. She becomes a very versatile character once you get her to E4. Okay, now I'm going to go to the Gepard comparison. So, her and Gepard are practically an Uno reverse card of each other. She's a single target shielder who does a lot of AoE CC. Or should I say, she does a lot of shielding, single target shielding, but she has AoE CC through her ult. He does a lot of single target CC, but he has a lot of shielding through his ult, as well as his technique. And funny enough, her technique also lets her freeze even more. So I love that these two not only are like the Uno reverse cards of each other, but they work extremely well together as well. Like if you want to have them both in your team, especially if you get her to E4, where she can actually do some respectable damage. He already gets respectable damage just through his traces, where he gets 35% of his defense applied to his attacks. Like they're gonna be a beautiful thing. They really are. And then on top of that, here's another comparison. Both of them have built-in aggro generation. So she gets it through her shield, so she can apply it to anyone, which can kind of be great, can kind of be bad. Basically, whoever she's shielding, you're protected. Your ally, your enemies are likely going to attack that person, but it then procs her passive or her counterattack, which is what you want. That's what allows her to attack and potentially break enemies. Because otherwise, she would never get to attack, correct? Excuse me, ooh, man. And then on top of that, when it comes to the G-Man here, for him, his is permanent. He gets it through his trace, I believe. Yeah, right here. So when he gets a higher chance of enemies attacking him, as well as his light cone. If you get lucky or just pay to win to get his light cone, it also not only increases his effect hit rate, which is going to be that much better for a single target, but it makes enemies more likely to attack him. So again, they both have this awesome aggro generation effect. It's not a pure taunt. Pure taunts do exist. If you've seen Fire Traveler or Fire MC, like pure taunts exist. So it sucks that that Gepard as a 5-star doesn't get a pure taunt, but he still has ways to make enemies want to attack him instead of someone else. And again, as a preservation character, it's great that March also has that ability, even though technically she forces them to attack other characters. They're shielded, right? So they're not taking damage. It's really just allowing her to proc her counterattacks by the enemy attacking whoever it is that they're attacking, while she's constantly just refreshing her shields. Okay, and then also, basically G-Man is the tank, right? He is the tank, but she allows anyone to be the tank at her benefit, even if you just want her to be the tank by shielding herself. But honestly, with everything I've said about her and her light cone and her Eidolons, she's going to basically shield everyone anyway and probably still technically be the tank. You also, here's the thing between these two. If you want to say, oh, you know, I want to get Gepard, but I don't really want to use March, or hey, I love March, but should I get Gepard? Is he better? Honestly, they kind of fill different roles. They both honestly kind of fill different roles. She has a dispel in her shield. That's huge. Just having that, along with being able to shield your allies, is amazing. While he is more of just literally just tankiness. That's all he really is. He CCs a lot and he tanks a lot. He doesn't really do much else. So I think she has a little more to offer as a 4-star, especially invested, than he does. But honestly, if you gave him the same light cone as her, I mean, he could still kind of fulfill the role. But then it wouldn't be as great because he already gets AoE shielding, but he would still get the damage reduction, right? So that could go a long way also. So yeah, I mean, with that, guys, that's pretty much how you should build her. I feel like you should build just stack defense defense. I keep wanting to say penetration. What's wrong with me? Stack defense percent on everything but your chest. Get effect hit rate here. That's going to give her so much more capability of not only shielding your allies, but CCing the enemy. And she doesn't feel like her ult's just kind of useless. Because, I mean, that thing doesn't do much damage, right? And you're thinking, oh, well, it does no damage. It hardly freezes. Why am I using this character outside of those godly shields? Well, here's your answer to that. Get her some effect hit rate, and you're going to see her just skyrocket in value. So with that, guys, thank you all for watching, and I will see y'all next time.
Rules are made to be broken.
Check out this awesome move! Markers activated. Time for a good old counterattack! To guard and defend. Crush them!